is the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers. Together, let's drive.
Welcome into another edition of the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. Mike Leslie, Andrew Cely here with you as always. It's been a couple hours now, but I think everybody's still riding high off of Rory McIlroy finally finishing it off. That was quite a show today.
To put it mildly. I mean, when you're expecting high drama at the Masters, sure, but usually the collapse is permanent. Not like that. That was spectacular.
Today was different. Today was, again, we were talking about it upstairs a little while ago. Maybe it's recency bias because we just lived through it all, but that felt a notch above the norm. That was a fun Masters Sunday for sure.
100%. We'll get more into that here in a second. But first, we got to get a lot to get into with What's on the Show.
Here's What's on the Show, sponsored by NFM.
The Mavs said hello to Luka Doncic again and goodbye again. Wasn't that fun? Yeah, we got a lot to talk about with regards to the Mavs and everything that happened on Wednesday still, plus a look ahead to their chances in the play-in, but we kind of know the season's winding down. The Stars are in free fall, though, right before the playoffs. What's going on the ice? And this week, we ask which is more likely, with a special mention of a famous curse and some recent records set in the pros. That's What's on the Show. Mike, now who's on the show?
On the show today, a regular guest, Saad Yousuf of The Athletic. Saad, we appreciate you being with us as always. What did you make of today's final round of the Masters?
Man, so I always watch the Masters with my red polo on, and as you can see, I still have it on right now.
Nice.
And before I came on, though, I mean, the reason why I say that is it was literally a sweaty mess. I thought I was going to have to change out of it because I was literally sweating through my polo. And so it was crazy, man. I mean, when Rory missed that, the first thing I thought of was just not to conjure bad memories for Rangers fans, but it just felt like Game 6. And you know, and if he hadn't come through in the playoff, I think that's exactly what I'd be feeling right now afterwards.
Yeah, no, it was brutal to see him miss the putt on 18, to see him just absolutely cough up, I guess, the wedge on 13. I don't know how, like, he played it safe and still put that third shot in the drink on 13. I don't know how he managed to do that. And yet, despite all of that collapse, at one point trailing Justin Rose by a stroke, comes all the way back and ends up winning it in the playoff. It was, again, that was theater beyond the norm for a Masters Sunday. It was fun to watch and good for Rory. The catharsis for him on the green afterward, the almost rage joy at the end with how fired up he got. It was unbelievable how excited he was, but it made sense with all that he had to go through to get to that point.
When I've thought about Rory for the last couple of years, he's been one of those guys that just can't seem to get over the hump in those specific moments, which is funny because the Mavs are looking for their own right now and a guy that can kind of close in key moments. And we kind of saw the last guy that was able to do that on Wednesday. Saad, you were at the game. What did you think about everything that happened on the court?
It was just an emotional, it was so emotional from the start to the finish. And I think it was a gut punch for a lot of fans just to watch Luka watching the tribute video. I think a lot of people expected the tribute video to kind of bring out all those emotions, but watching Luka, first of all, I give Luka a lot of credit for being as vulnerable as he was. It's not easy for athletes to do that. A lot of times they'll mask it, they'll try to hide it, they'll try to keep those things in. He really just let it all out, and you could just see how vulnerable he was. To me, there were two absolute dagger moments for me from that and from Luka's return to Dallas. The first was watching him watch the tribute video, and the second, I don't mean to move past the game itself, which was fantastic, but the next day for him to stay around in Dallas and help in the community and be around with the kids, just those two moments for me was just it just brought it all back again.
I think you're right about the fact that he allowed himself to go there because he knew coming into the day how emotional he was going to be, how much this was going to impact him. He could have shut down. He could have gone towel over his head and tried not to watch the tribute video or try to kind of be blinders on and just kind of stare straight forward and not let himself go there emotionally. He was locked in and let himself get emotional, let himself wipe the tears away multiple times. And as J.J. Redick said after the game, and I thought he was absolutely on point with this, the fact that he was able to do that and still take the floor with tears in his eyes and go out and put the performance he did on the floor, 31 points in the first half alone, was unbelievable. J.J. Redick called it superhuman. I don't know what else to call it. It was unbelievable what he did to be able to channel that emotion and go play the way that he did. It was awesome.
I'll follow up and say that one of the things that stuck out to me was also the absence of competition from the Mavs to some degree. Yeah, the game got close occasionally, a couple points, but Anthony Davis, the guy you traded for, was essentially a non-factor in the game. And when Luka hits a step-back three in the first quarter in his face, basically recreating the Rudy Gobert shot from the playoffs, it was kind of just another reminder that the balance in this trade doesn't exist. And I felt for Anthony Davis because this should have been about him too. This was a Lakers team that essentially gave up on him from him being a cornerstone of what was looking like it could have been a run for multiple championships, but moving on to a younger talent and letting LeBron kind of pass the torch to a similar play style. Now, though, with this Mavs team, you're kind of sitting there thinking, okay, sure, Kyrie's not on the field, or not on the court, excuse me, but what can we expect here? Because I still have, except for that one little glimpse when Anthony Davis was healthy, Kyrie was on the floor against the Rockets in their first game, I haven't seen enough to sit there and think this team is going to be competitive for a championship in the near future. Saad, what do you think?
Yeah, you're totally right, Andrew. And you know, you asked what that being there in that arena meant on that day. I was there 6 years prior, sitting courtside when Dirk played his last game at the AAC, and Luka was 20 years old. And there was a lot of these same things where I think Jamal Crawford dropped the quietest 50-piece you'll ever see in NBA history, and Dirk was doing his thing, and Luka was just a young guy playing alongside Dirk, and none of the stuff that happened on the court really mattered. It was all about the hope and everything that this franchise was going towards going into the next year. And I felt the complete opposite. It really didn't matter if the Mavericks won or lost. It didn't matter if they made it competitive or not. It didn't even matter that Luka dropped 45. The reality is this team, this Mavs team, is headed for a consolation play-in game, and the Lakers are contenders, and Luka, I believe, leads the Lakers in all categories in everything since he's been in LA.
Just about,
It was just a reminder that this is bigger than a game. This is the direction of the entire franchise.
I do think that there is a pathway for the Mavs to be good in the future. It's not this season. It's not happening. To your point, it's probably a one and done in the play, and even if they win their way to the 8th seed, they're a sacrificial lamb for OKC. If, and there's a lot of ifs between here and there, but if you can get AD healthy, Kyrie healthy, Gaff, Lively, PJ, all these guys healthy and on the floor at the same time, that can be a good team. I don't know for how long, if that window's a year, if that window's 2 years. There's a window of time where this trade can look for a moment a little bit almost even. Unless a meteor hits in 2029, it won't be even after that. But there's but the ifs that have to connect to even get to that point at some point 10, 11 months from now, we'll see if it ever actually materializes. I have my doubts.
Yeah, that's putting it lightly. And also Jason Kidd's comments, which I'm sure we'll get into later in the show. But go ahead, Saad.
Oh, boy.
Well, I just want to say, Mike, one other thing that we saw that day is this is bigger than whatever the results on the court are. This is winning a championship with all those guys that you mentioned. It would be great, but Luka was Dallas's own. And you know, the comparison that I always make, the Rangers won the championship a couple years ago, and that's great. Rangers fans loved it. But trust me, Rangers fans would care a lot more for that 2011 championship to happen than the one that happened the other day, because that was the Rangers' own. This one, look, love Seager, Simeon, and everything's great, but it just feels a little different. And even if they break through with all these other guys, I feel like it won't hit the same.
Not all
if
championships.
that had included Adrian Beltre, what it would have meant to, like, if he had hung on for long enough, would have meant a lot more.
Just a reminder, not all championships are created equal. As much as we like to count them as stats, certain ones just mean more. All right, stay with us. When we come back, we're talking about another team that still has a chance to win a title, but they don't look like it lately. Coming up next, we're talking Stars. Stay with us on the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show.
Today's headlines, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers.
The Rangers fall to the Mariners 3-1 on the road. Texas, with a rough week, now sits at 9-7 overall. And Rory McIlroy is finally a Masters champion. He staves off a late collapse and defeats Justin Rose in a one-hole playoff to earn his first career green jacket and complete the career Grand Slam. Speaking of, we hope, near collapses, the Stars and what they've been dealing with lately, not exactly the right way you want to go into the playoffs, but maybe they're taking a page out of the Rangers from a couple of years ago where they just fell flat on their face.
That's
and then
an interesting
still won
comp.
the whole thing.
Yeah.
Mike?
Listen, I mean, Pete DeBoer said it after the game the other day that Tyler Seguin made a speech to the team about the fact that, hey, last year we went rolling into the playoffs, 10-2 the last 12 games of the season, and then lost the first 2 games against Vegas in the first round on home ice. So how we finished the season doesn't really mean that much. They're hoping that that's true because, Saad, the way that they're finishing this season has not inspired a ton of confidence after that it seemed like they were playing some pretty good hockey not that long ago.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you have to look at their health, and not having Miro Heiskanen has been really tough. And, you know, not having Miro is something that you can get by for a short period of time, but at some point that comes back to haunt you. And right now, I think the Stars are seeing that in a big way. The other thing is they have to get off to better starts in these series. They haven't won a game 1 since 2020, and I think that's the one thing for them is they have to set the tone a little bit better. But at the end of the day, I feel pretty confident about their forward group. I still think they'll be fine whether Seguin comes back or not, which he's knocking on the door. But for me, it's that defense group with, I mean, aside from Thomas Harley, you really don't have a whole lot going on there, and that's terrifying when you're matching up against Cale Makar in the first round.
Yeah, we have seen some moments with Dallas Blue Liners colliding into one another, leading to a Penguins goal a couple games ago. It has been ugly at points. You mentioned the health of it all, and obviously the Tyler Seguin, Miro Heiskanen health is what is front and center for everybody, but just coming out over the course of the last 24 to 36 hours or so, they've got the flu apparently going through the team as well. So that doesn't make anything easier, and maybe it explains a little bit of the struggles of late. I don't know how long that it's been going through the team. It's only just come out recently, but maybe that factors into the fact that they've been a little sluggish lately.
Maybe.
Yeah, but the schedule doesn't help either because the Avalanche are going to have like 4 or 5 days before of no hockey before they go. Well, the Stars still have another game to play later this week, so they're not going to be super well rested. Definitely not in comparison to the Avalanche.
The other thing that scared me, and granted, I might be overreacting a little bit, but it just feels like I haven't seen Ottinger's best yet in a while. And I'm looking specifically at the Canucks game, where, granted, it was essentially 6-on-5 for the final minute, but you would think up 3 goals you can get out of that game clean. And we've even seen a couple times in the playoffs where he'll let up a softie and it'll just get in his head, and then they're playing from behind for a little bit. I know great goaltenders can give up even an occasional what the heck happened there kind of situation, but it feels like with Ottinger it's starting to happen a little more regularly. Saad, I'm curious from your perspective, is there any concern from his stance heading into the playoffs here?
There is a little bit, just because his last year in the playoffs wasn't as stellar as you're used to seeing him in the regular season, at least either. But to me, the goaltending and the defenseman, they all kind of play hand in hand. It's kind of like saying you have concerns for a receiver, but the quarterback is the problem. So right. I mean, it's right there together. And yeah, I do have some concerns with Ottinger, but to be honest, my concerns with Ottinger stem a lot more what's happening right in front of him than him on his own.
The path in the West, too, is brutal as usual. I mean,
Buddy,
you're talking about multiple rounds against some of the best teams in the league with some of the best players in the league, and I realize everyone deals with that in the playoffs, but just handicapping the West this year. They're not facing a defending champ right out the gate, sure, but you're still getting McKinnon, you're still getting Makar in the first round side. I mean, what can we expect from this series aside from a seven-game knockout, drag-out fight?
Yeah, well, look, I don't know the exact ins and outs of what the Avalanche have going on with Gabriel Landeskog, but he also started getting back. He hasn't played in a couple of years. He's on a conditioning stint in the AHL as well. If they get their captain back, I mean, that's even more for the Avalanche. It's hard to feel confident when you have your best player in Cale Makar, which I believe that he is the Avalanche's best player, and the Stars just have no answer for him. I think Miro and Makar, they're always linked together because of the draft day and where they went, but they match up really well on the ice. Miro is a top 5 defenseman in the NHL. Cale Makar is probably number one on that category. And I think that's the mismatch that's going to come back to bite the Stars throughout the series, because as Pete DeBoer said, even if Miro returns, they're going to have to ease him into, he hasn't played hockey in a long time, and they're going to have to ease him back into game shape.
Yeah, this is not going to be plug-and-play Miro Heiskanen that you just, okay, he's right back to being that top 5 defenseman. It's going to take some time, and they don't have that time. It's why chasing after the 1 seed was such a good idea for them, and they got reasonably close. It ultimately blew up on them at the end, but that would have made their pathway a lot easier through the postseason and given Miro an opportunity to ramp up. There's no opportunity to ramp up anymore.
So what you're saying, Mike, is it's not a Mark Stone situation.
No, it is not a Mark Stone situation, no.
Ironically, with the person that delivered.
It was a Mark Stone created situation.
Yeah.
Sure. All right, stay with us on the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. Coming up next, which is more likely? It's game time.
And now it's time for Which is More Likely.
Welcome back to the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. Time now for Which is More Likely? A very simple game, Mike, where I present a series of statements to you and Saad, and it's your goal to analyze and give me a reason. Which of the two is more likely? Sounds simple? That's because it is. Don't complicate it. All right. In honor of one of Jason Kidd's best sound bites from the past week, which is more likely? Luka Doncic becomes a 4-time NBA champion, or the Mavs win at least one title in the next 86 years? For those curious why I'm asking this, Kidd compared the Luka trade to the curse of the Bambino, and this would be the equivalent for Luka and the Mavs. So, Saad, start us out here. Which side of this do you believe is more likely?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Mavs winning once in the next 86 years. Okay. I think there will be multiple ownership changes, and I believe Nico Harrison won't be the GM 85 years from now, so that gives them a chance in the 86th year.
Okay, Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the odds are this isn't going to be another curse of the Bambino, so yeah, probably the Mavs get one in the next 86 years, but that soundbite was something else.
That's one way of putting it. All right, next up, I want to poke at two of the most recent records set in sports. Which is more likely to be broken in the future? It could be at any point in the future. LeBron's scoring record in the NBA or Ovechkin's goal record. Mike, what do you think here?
I guess I can't go neither.
That's right. Granted, this isn't no fence riding, so I'm not going to hold you to account.
But yeah, wow. I guess LeBron's is more likely to be broken because I don't know. Austin Matthews has got a shot at Ovechkin, so yeah, I guess Ovechkin's likelier to go down because I don't know who's on track really to catch LeBron. I don't think anybody's currently on track to chase him down. So just based on that, I'll say Ovechkin.
Saad?
Yeah, I think both are tough, but I'll go the other way just for the sake of this discussion, because I think with the three-point line and everything that we're seeing, LeBron wasn't a prolific three-point shooter throughout his career. If you get another guy like Steph who doesn't have a slow start to his career like Steph did, I could see that being a possibility for them.
I lean more toward Ovechkin just in terms of scoring is up in the NHL right now if you hit the peaks at the right time. And guys are only going to get more talented, you would think, in the game based off of information and sports psychology. So that's how I kind of lean, and the longevity on LeBron's record is just ridiculous. All right, finally, which is more likely? The NCAA is restructured and survives this recent bout of lawsuits with their sum totality intact, or college sports all burned to the ground? For a little bit of backstory here, athletes have sued the NCAA in a nearly $3 billion class action lawsuit for both direct payments between school and athlete and retroactive compensation for their time in college athletics. Saad, how do you see the future of the NCAA playing out?
I think demolition, and I don't mean that college sports is going to burn to the ground, but I do think the entire infrastructure is going to change, and it's going to be remodeled and brought up from the ashes into something that is something completely unrecognizable from what we're seeing right now, because this just isn't sustainable.
Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to envision it not looking the way that it does because we've been so used to it for so long, but you're right, it doesn't work right now, and something fundamentally has to get completely reworked in order for this to work. The story with Tennessee and Nico Iamaleava, however you say his last name, the quarterback, that story is just another kind of link in the chain, and the school's trying to pull back a little bit of bargaining power here, but it's all a mess.
Yeah, and let me say my piece as the swimmer in the room. Because a swimmer is part of the reason why this is even happening. Grant House from Arizona State at the time is the one that kind of kicked off this lawsuit, looking for retroactive compensation and just ironing out an actual direct payment strategy. But part of the frustration with this has been funding toward football and funding toward basketball, the two predominant powers, has helped buoy a lot of these smaller programs across the country. And what you're essentially doing right now is there will be roster limits in the future, like the swimming rosters have already been cut by 2 moving forward this summer, and that's going to have a trickle-down effect on every team. And to some degree, it will impact it already this year, but when these smaller programs lose funding because football teams take all of it for themselves or basketball teams take all of it for themselves, not that they don't deserve it because that's the revenue that they provide, then that's the discrepancy. It's like you're giving people what they're worth, but you're also losing so much value in the rest of the university as far as sports goes. That's my take. It's really frustrating that we're going through this.
It's hard not to wonder where Title IX goes in all of this.
Well, they already said Title IX does not impact this ruling, so it will not be equally distributed between men's and women's sports, and that's going to be a huge discrepancy. It absolutely is. Yeah. All right, stay with us on the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. Something lighter. Mike's final take coming up next. For those who haven't picked up on it, Mike has had his own flu game, and that's,
Buddy,
he's been struggle busted, but we're going through it.
We're almost there.
We're almost there. We're almost there, and thankfully, I've got some distance between us, so
that's right.
It won't stick around.
It's old school, social distancing. Here we go.
Don't even go there. Mike's final take.
I know we talked about it off the top of the show, but it bears repeating. What a performance from Rory McIlroy today to stare down his demons and still end up winning the green jacket finally on his 11th try. He was the guy when he first came up, we thought for sure he was going to be added to that short list of golfers who have won a career Grand Slam. And then time and time and time again, he got punched in the gut by Augusta National. And then it happened all day today. But still, he was able to push through and win in the playoff, and you saw his reaction on the 18th green the second time he came through 18, finally victorious. It was a thing to behold. Congratulations, Rory McIlroy. You earned that in spades today. That was awesome to watch.
Basically, the entire world is rooting for him in that moment.
Everybody was. Everybody was. Yeah, it was cool.
Thank you so much for watching the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. We will see you next week.
This has been the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers. Together, let's drive.